time for that.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to That Star Trek Podcast, your place for a detailed analysis and speculation of all things Trek. My name is Sean Ray, and I've kind of started wondering lately, is the succotash suffering, or are we suffering the succotash? Something to think about.
Now I actually will think about that, Sean.
Joining me tonight in the historic Infinite Potato Studio, we have Jen. How are you?
I don't even know what succotash is, but I'm here and I'm ready to go.
All right. Rick is here as well. How's it going, sir?
I think after our preliminary discussion, I'm going to change my bathroom's name to the Pattern Buffer.
Oh, that's so good.
I'm trapped in the pattern buffer. He's been in the pattern buffer for 74 years.
It comes out every once in a while.
Just had one magazine the whole time.
And Dave is here as well. How's it going, sir?
It's going okay. I'm glad to be here.
All righty. Tonight, we will be discussing the third episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds' first season, which was titled Ghosts of Illyria, written by Akela Cooper and Bill Walkoff, and directed by Leslie Hope. The original air date was May 19th, 2022. Una must confront a secret she's been hiding when a contagion ravages the ship, incapacitating the rest of the crew. All right. So what are our initial impressions? Jen, what did you think of this episode?
Why do I always have to go first?
Well, ladies first.
Okay. I liked it for the most part. There were a couple of small details I wasn't too fond of, but it was nice to have an Una-centric episode. At first, when they started doing the whole, oh, everybody's getting sick, I was like, oh, please don't make it the Naked Time or the Naked Now. Please don't make it. No, don't do it. Don't do it. Because everyone started going, oh, I'm getting hot and I'm taking my clothes off. I kept thinking it was going to be that. No, luckily it wasn't, but it was very on the nose for COVID. in some capacity, but otherwise I thought it was really great, and we got a couple of really nice Pike and Spock moments on top of all the Una stuff. We got a little bit more about Leon, which we already knew, but whatever. Some more detail about Una, a really great Ortega scene, and overall I enjoyed it. Like I said, just a couple of teeny tiny details I wasn't too fond of, but there you
go. All right. Dave, what about you?
Very short episode. I liked it overall, but I felt like it really needed room to breathe. Like the big reveals, because we got like 3 of them, didn't really feel big. I didn't care. Like I was saying on my show, this may have needed to be like episode 6. And like, layer in the Mbenga mystery a little bit. Like, what is he hiding? Also, they could have told us why he's hiding it exactly, because that just seems like a thing. He'd be like, hey, dude, my daughter's sick. And Pike could be like, cool, do what you got to. Like, it doesn't seem that complicated. But yeah, a lot, like all of the big reveals fell flat for me, but whatever.
Yeah, I never really got the gist that they would have just taken this little girl and just, no, I'm sorry, she's just gonna have to die. Like, I mean,
we can't have this strain on this particular transporter. Sorry, doctor.
All right, Rick, what did you think?
I enjoyed it overall. It's well known that I enjoy being pandered to. But this series doesn't, they are really leaning hard into TOS style as opposed to specifics. The Illyrian being, non-corporeal, ghosty beings, we think they're coming to hurt us, but they're really helping us. Mm-hmm. Transporter problems, ion storms, ensign dipshit. They're really leaning into the TOS isms. I didn't mind it. I enjoyed the episode, but I think they're really trying a little too hard, and I hope they kind of back off on that a little bit. But things like those jackets, those away jacket, I want one. I don't care if I have to sell my kid for it. I want one of those jackets. Well, okay, maybe a little bit. But I enjoyed the performances, and yeah, it did wrap up really quickly, but then there's very little that's more Star Trek than 43 minutes of problem and 2 minutes of solution. So
yeah.
Well, it was 38 minutes. It was very short.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty short.
I enjoyed it overall, but I'll be honest, I think the first half of the episode was middling because I felt like this was something that we've seen a million times. You got there's a contagion on board and it's taking over the ship, and there's a couple of crew men that we can't beam up for some reason. I thought that they gave us some false starts because Dave made a joke last week, I think, about what Ghosts of Illyria meant, that it wasn't gonna, it wasn't gonna be ghosts. We knew that, but okay. So when they started beaming up and they said ion storm, I was like, oh god, not the mirror universe, please, not the mirror universe. And then when they started to lose their pattern, I thought, okay, they're going to be the ghosts because their pattern is going to get dispersed into the atmosphere or something, and they're going to be doing the whole Geordie Row thing where they're like going through walls and stuff like that. But then I figured out these fire creatures. This is like something from Deep Space Nine,
Yeah.
But it was I don't know. The first half of it just seemed like it had been done a million times. Now towards the end of it, when we started learning some new things about Una and stuff like that, I like the episode overall, and I like the way it wrapped up. But yeah, it did seem like contagion stories are not the best to do in your first 10 episodes of a new Star Trek series, because and
yet every Star Trek series seems to want to do it.
Yeah, the next generation basically remade The Naked Time.
Yeah.
In their what was it, their second episode or third?
It was number two. It was number two.
We got to mention Kirk and the Enterprise, quick.
Yeah. When it got to the halfway point and they did that scene with Hemmer in the transporter room, I knew something different was coming, especially with number one just walking down the hall with his body over her shoulder like it was nothing.
Well, yeah, I immediately, at first I kept thinking, oh no, she's been genetically altered, and then she went on to admit she's Illyrian, which she looks nothing like the Illyrians from Enterprise, but that's fine.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because I have read different things. I've read that the Illyrians from Enterprise, I've read that they are the same Illyrians, and I've read that they're not the same Illyrians, that these are just like different species, then they're both called Illyrians.
I thought they had said that they were spread out both in this episode and on Enterprise, but if they're all genetically modifying themselves, there could be just sects of groups of them, just modifying themselves in a specific way.
Yeah. Because that episode of Enterprise, when I heard Illyrian, I was like, man, if they're calling back to that, that's almost like what's the Deep Space Nine episode where he's talking to the camera through the whole thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Pale Moonlight.
Pale Moonlight.
Yeah, Pale Moonlight. This kind of where your captain does this really dark thing. I mean, like really dark thing. And if they were calling back to that, but I figured out pretty quick that they're not doing that. It's just it's something else. They're just
although
the same race, but
Una deleting her log entry was like straight out of that one.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Without the emotional punch.
Yeah.
But for listeners, if you don't know, there was an Enterprise episode that had the Illyrians where basically Archer and crew stole their warp drive.
I
mean, they were like they became pirates, and they took
their
warp
pretty
drive
much. I had an argument
and left them stranded there.
I had an argument with Mr. Jen. He was just like, well, no, they stole it back. It was their warp drive to begin with. No, it was not. They flat out took it.
That was the only warp drive that they could get, and they took it. And And they didn't even go like, we'll come back for you. No, they didn't.
No, they just left him there.
Yeah. So but yeah, they didn't call back to that. So we ended up getting a pretty decent episode about people being more than the place that they came from, and a little bit about trust. It was really a complex episode that wrapped up in kind of a silly premise, which is on par for Star Trek sometimes. So all right, well, let's get into the plot a little bit. So the Enterprise is investigating the abandonment of Illyrian colonists. With Illyrian culture revolving around genetic modifications, they have largely been banned by Federation policy, so they won't accept them into the Federation as long as they're doing these experiments or whatever. But then they're all gone. They're not there, So with a massive ion store rapidly approaching the site, number one, and most of the landing party are able to safely return to Enterprise eventually. Hemmer has to do some finagling to get them up there, but Pike and Spock are forced to take shelter as the storm disrupts the Enterprise's ship systems. So the landing party that were able to return to the Enterprise are exhibiting strange symptoms, calmed only by the presence of light, and they're willing to hurt themselves to get closer to it. And we see 2 times that somebody tries to use the transporter to basically destroy the transporter both times. It was him who tried to use the transporter to beam a piece of a
mantle from the planet.
Like magma from the middle of the planet up. And then Ortega tries to basically destroy the ship with the warp core.
That was Leon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I don't. You mentioned Ortega's before. Didn't see her in this episode.
I'm going to say that they're by non-binary.
Are they?
No,
I've heard she, but I think
at least the character has gone by she so far in the
whatever.
The show,
anyway,
so.
But Ortegas was in the hallway when that first red shirt ended up smashing his face through the wall. That was
Ortega's again. Oh, okay. I thought it was. You're right.
Yeah.
She said whatever freaks your tweak or tweaks your freak
That's
or whatever
right.
it was.
Yeah.
All right. So
I gotta say that graphic in engineering when Hemmer rerouted power was freaking sweet. The 3D transparent view of the Enterprise and then showing the power transfer pathways. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
Hemmer's a douche, by the way. I hope that at some point we're going to get to the endearing part of him being, a lovable asshole. But right now he's just an asshole.
Well, most engineers are. Hemmer, the guy in engineering.
I thought that was supposed to be the funny thing about him is that's just his.
They keep saying that he's blind, but he keeps looking at everybody like. Okay.
Well, I mean, he's got antenna. Man. He can see. He even told number one. She gave him a look, and he said, "I can sense that expression." He's like, "I know." But I did like in engineering when they called that there's going to be a ship-wide lockdown or whatever. He just snaps his fingers, and everybody knew exactly where to go. I was like, "Well, he's got his department working like clockwork."
Just imagine the antenna as Geordi's visor.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he said in the first time that we met him that his senses are much better than an average person or whatever, even without because I mean, the thing with his species is that they're naturally blind. I mean, they're all born that way. It's not like it's something that he lost, so evolution has created their senses to be much more enhanced. But
I am curious as to why his antennae aren't animated like in Enterprise, because
budget.
I think I don't think Paramount's hurting for money right now.
I wonder if that was a little distracting, or if they just thought that might be a little distracting if the antenna are just like moving around randomly the way they were on Enterprise. But I don't know. It could. I mean, it made for some funny moments, where they'd stand up when they were surprised about something or something like that. But okay, so Dr. Mbanga and Chief Hemmer are puzzled by this development, not detecting any biocontaminants while theorizing on whether the landing party were exposed to unknown pathogens on the planet's surface. But then the virus or whatever it is starts spreading to people that weren't even on the landing party. And Mbanga links the attraction to light to a noticeable vitamin D deficiency. And everybody starts to get it. Mbanga gets it, Hemmer gets it, Lon gets it, and number one gets it, but then like it goes away. Like we see her like turn all fiery or whatever, light up, and then it like goes away.
And the way she stood up straight and it reminded me of Khan and the augments going.
Mhm.
Doing that.
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of.
Like she was willing it to go away or something like that. Yeah. So immediately recognizing the gravity of the situation, number one orders a ship-wide confinement to quarters for non-essential personnel to prevent the contagion from spreading further. I just thought of something that I wanted to bring up a minute ago and I forgot about it, but the transporter room is huge compared to
Everything on this ship is
everything
huge.
is huge.
TOS.
You look at Una's quarters, it's like, wow, okay.
Yeah. I can kind of understand why they would want to expand the quarters and stuff, but there's certain things on the ship that you wouldn't think that they would make smaller when they refit it later.
Like the turbo lift alone is bigger than the original series hangar bay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which I'm not saying I want the ship to be made out of wood and cardboard like the TOS Enterprise was, but size matters. That's what
I am
say.
saying that. I am saying that. Wood and cardboard. That's
string. Make all the computer wires out of string.
Okay, you want to save some cost? I got you. Let's do this.
Number one, and Mbanga deduce that the contagion is spread across light waves, and they decide to sedate the infected. So, yeah, they determine that if they turn off all the lights, they'll be able to stop the spread. But if they turn off all the lights, everybody's going to basically go nuts. So should we sedate everybody? Yeah.
I just love how not dark the ship got after they turned off the light.
Yeah, my wife was not really watching. She was doing something else, but she kind of was half listening. And there was one scene when number one was walking down the hallway after the lights were supposed to be off, and it was all lit up. And why? I thought they turned the lights off. Yeah, but those are the auxiliary lights.
Oh, my thing was like her is like I have to sleep in pitch black, and then like Una gets to the side of her pod and closes the thing,
still, like, it's
and it's
blue.
still it's like
It's not black at all. Yeah.
No.
yes. I couldn't sleep in that. No, what are you talking about?
That would make me go nuts. I'm not claustrophobic, but I don't think I'd be able to sleep in a little closet like that.
I'd be cool with that. I wouldn't have a problem. The thing I thought was bizarre is, okay, y'all, if you're not watching the video, I'm going to try to describe what I'm doing, but Una gets into Uhura's bed, which, first of all, dude,
It's like this big. It's huge.
But-
It's really teeny tiny.
then she lays down and she puts both of her hands together under her head.
Yeah, I was like, why?
And
did
I'm
you do
like,
that?
Cartoons and 2-year-olds pretending to sleep do that. No real person sleeps like that.
But when a real person, and I've done that, it's a weird thing. I've seen other people do it. When someone is trying to mimic going to sleep, they do that shit. It's
Yeah.
real weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Sharon wants to say goodnight. She's got to go to bed.
Okay.
We haven't had a Sharon cameo in a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on.
Hi.
Hang on. Let me turn up
Hi.
the speaker so you can hear him. Okay, go ahead and say hi.
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 Bye.
Is that what you want to say? Say goodnight, Sharon.
Good night, Sharon. And I'm a Hufflepuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good night, monkey.
Wrong cast. This is a Star Trek.
Wait. Actually, Sharon, come here. Let- I want you to pretend my shoulder is your pillow. Pretend to go to sleep. Oh, she didn't do it.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
She'd stay there all night, you know that.
Yeah, I know.
I pecked you.
Yes, you pecked me. That's her thing now. She pecks.
But yeah, I mean,
I have to avoid saying that she's a really good pecker because that just would not be something I'd ever want her to.
I
Tell
wonder
people.
if it was just a thing where I don't know. I don't know why they would do that. It was obvious that she wasn't really going to sleep. She was just pretending to. She was just laying down. So maybe she just wanted a barrier between her face and another person's pillow.
You know, when she first laid down and she was laying, facing one way, and then she did that, and I was like, all right. And then Uhura was like, no, I sleep the other way. And then she flipped over and did it again. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell?
Well, also when they determined that Uhura wasn't infected because she was in the dark, but now she's out. Does that mean that she's infected now?
Well,
I
they said
mean,
she was infected, but she wasn't having any symptoms.
okay,
That's
I don't
what they
remember
said.
that,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's so I don't know what the rules of this.
Yeah,
this
I was
contagion
confused
are.
too. I was just like, okay.
But okay, so number one is forced to stun him or when he attempts to beam aboard a raw piece of the planet's mantle for its light and heat. And he even says, you don't know what he's doing at first. I assumed that he had an idea, and then he says, I got to get the force field down so I can feel it on my skin. I was like, oh my God, he wants to cook himself. And then she later stops La'an from overloading the Enterprise's engines to boost its light and heat input by a whole lot. And it's revealed they have this exchange there where she's a genetically engineered Illyrian herself. So this heritage gives number one a degree of immunity from the contagion. That's why I kind of thought that the Illyrians from Enterprise were not the same Illyrians, because she doesn't look like that.
Yeah.
That's what this
Yeah.
episode should have been called. Degrees of immunity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about what was the trill on TNG? Odon. No, Odon was the other guy. The trill that Beverly fell in love with.
Yeah.
That was Odon. Yeah.
Oh, it was Odon. You're right.
Mhm.
And then Jadzia and every trill since didn't look anything like that. So
Yes.
changing
That
the
was
look.
because
They
that was
redesigned
actually
them.
explained because they tried that ridge on her head and it didn't look good. So that
Yeah, they didn't. Rick Berman didn't want her looking anything other than like a fashion model, because
I thought that was Gene. Well, okay, whichever. But
No,
anyway,
Gene had
No, it
nothing to
was-
do with DS9.
okay.
Gene was dead.
Yeah, he was gone by then. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very homogenized, wonderful, nice way of saying what I've heard, what I've read over and over again is that some producer said, why the hell you have all that shit on her face? She's hot. She's supposed to be gorgeous.
Pretty much, yeah.
And they were like, well, that's what the trill looked like. And they were like, put the shit from Famke on her.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, they
Yeah,
redid it.
I mean,
that was Berman.
Gave her the dots and yeah.
I mean, I figured it was Berman, but much like we don't know for sure that it was Gene that tried to have sex with Grace Lee Whitney and
Grace
then
Lee Whitney,
fired
yeah.
her.
Mhm.
We all
Yeah.
assume it's going to be him, but it was
Yeah.
just a producer,
Yeah.
high level producer.
Somebody in charge. Yeah.
You know who.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was a redesign of the aliens. This wasn't a redesign. This was completely taking away, because she just looks like a human person.
Well, but again, like what I forget which one of y'all said it. If they, if genetically engineering themselves is what they do, then the philology. What's the word for the outward appearance? Anyway, that's child's play.
Well, I figured she also made herself look human so she could get into Starfleet.
Well, I don't know, because they come from some book. They come from books. The Illyrians were first mentioned in books, and
Mhm.
I don't know
Yeah.
what they were supposed to look like there. So I don't remember.
No. But back at the abandoned colony, Pike and
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, yeah.
Pike and Spock have barricaded themselves in the archives as the ion storm overtakes it with these plasma beings detected within the storm itself. And I like Spock's just like, Captain, I cannot wait to read this.
Then he just start reading it,
It's like, well, you can do that later. Let's get out of here first.
That does seem like Spock.
Yeah.
Like he's always got that tricorder. Like, no, I'm checking up on the situation before you do some rash shit.
I did later in the episode, towards the end of the episode, after the storm is over and they're leaving, and that other scroll pops out of the wall, and Ethan Peck says, "Fascinating." I was like, he sounded exactly like Leonard Nimoy when he said that.
Yeah, and he also said, "Indeed."
He's been practicing
records.
Yeah.
He's really hitting
Records.
those O's, sensors, and these records, Captain.
Was I the only when we saw the ion ghost? Was I the only one who went, "Oh, it's the colonists"?
Yeah, I did. I did too.
I figured as much too. I also wrote "Who you gonna call?" because they, three of them got towards the window and then did that split off, and like, that's a Ghostbusters VFX there.
Yeah.
Well, so when I saw him, the first thing I said was, "Oh, fire rates," and then I said, "No, it's the colonists, obviously."
And when they tried to get in the door and they fought them off, and they actually succeeded in fighting them off, I was like, they're trying to help. They're not bad guys. They're trying to help. And then,
well, yeah, I didn't guess that right away. I guessed that it was the colonists, but I didn't know that they were trying to help. I didn't know why they would be trying to kill them unless they just had some secret that they didn't want revealed about themselves or whatever.
Like one of them finally mixed it in and goes, "I lost my phone."
But I also thought, once we found out that it was the colonists, I kind of thought that they were going to figure out a way to save them at the end, because that's kind of a Star Trek thing to do too.
True.
And they didn't do that.
Yeah, there was so much they could have done in that extra 20 minutes they had. For a streaming show that doesn't have any time limits.
Well, I mean, they don't technically have any time limits, except there are some markets where they're airing it on TV. So they try to keep the episode length at like a TV length, where they can put commercials in and it'll still be like an hour. But yeah, you're right. On streaming, they should be able to at least give us I would like for the people that watch it on streaming and don't wait for it to come out on DVD later or whatever, give us the uncut version. We're watching it first run, we're giving you our money immediately. Let's see the uncut version. Give us the full thing. And then
I do wonder if they'll do like TNG style stuff, where it's like Strange New Worlds with deleted scenes added back in for extended episodes on the Blu-ray release.
Yeah. Well, Discovery has I don't know if they've got added. I haven't watched any of them, but I don't know if they put deleted scenes on the Blu-rays for Discovery or anything like that. If you've watched Blu-rays for Discovery, let us know, because a lot of people, they don't want to subscribe. They just wait until it comes out on Blu-ray and then they buy it.
I have all of the Blu-rays of Discovery, so I'll look and see if they say anything about it on the packaging, but I haven't noticed it.
It seems like deleted scenes and director's commentary, and that's happening less and less these days.
Yes. Sadly.
So, yeah.
Like DVD sales are dropping because of streaming. So
exactly.
Well, I mean, putting stuff like that in is gonna at least get the collectors to come out and buy your product,
Yeah, but there's not enough collectors to really make it pay.
So
that's why we won't ever get one of the reasons we will almost not. Okay, never is a big word, but there's a very slim chance that we'll ever see a Blu-ray remastered DS9, because the Blu-ray remastered TNG project lost a shitload of money
for the amount of work that they had to put into it.
Yeah. And the TOS remaster made money, and so they went, hey, let's do TNG, and then they lost a lot of money because nobody was interested, because TNG looked pretty good to start with. And so it wasn't that huge of a leap. Now DS9 looks like crap because they shot 90% of it on video, and they they don't have the special effects were also shot on video. Well, no, they were shot on film, but the whole thing was mastered on video. So there
Yeah.
are no negatives to go back and remaster. So they'd have to do all the visual effects from scratch,
Yeah.
and no one's going to
You
put
might
that
as well
kind
be
of money
making
into-
you're making a new show at that point.
Here's what
Yeah.
I don't understand. Someone explain this to me. A lot of people on Twitter and whatnot who will tell me you're being ridiculous for liking the old TOS aesthetic better. We'll sit there and bitch all day about DS9 and Voyager not being in HD. And I'm like, it's just aesthetics. What do you care? You got the story. Like why are we worried about visuals?
Well, they showed that. I mean, you guys you all went to see What We Left Behind when it was
Yeah.
released in
Yeah, I
theater,
saw
right?
it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So they had that little documentary at the end that kind of told a little bit of why it'll never happen.
Mhm.
You know, because every not only was everything like you said, it's all on video and everything, but it's also everything's mixed up.
Yep.
And the episodes, the scenes are mixed all in with each other, so somebody would have to literally go in and recatalog everything that they do have, and then remaking all the visual effects from scratch. The budget would have to be like making a whole new series, you know. So
Yeah.
and
And
then
there
what
just
would-
aren't
and
enough
then what
people
would
that would buy it.
what would you charge for that, you know? And when they put it out, when they put TNG out on Blu-ray, they tried to market by putting a few episodes out in theaters for like a special one night event, but it was like Encounter at Farpoint, you know.
Yeah, like
I don't want to
Yeah.
go to the theater and watch Encounter at Farpoint.
I don't want to
But-
watch Encounter at Farpoint on my TV.
I know.
But yeah, but it's like, you know, we're releasing the first season on DVD, so come to the theater and you'll see Encounter at Farpoint and the Naked Now on the big screen. I'm like, oh yay.
And
that was like the Phantom Menace in 3D. No, thank you.
Yeah.
this is one of those things where, like, I was just talking about it on my show. Paramount has always done a tremendously terrible job of advertising Star Trek. They
Yeah.
just have, like, when they
Mhm.
were like, I didn't find out until like 2 years after they released TNG on Blu-ray that they had like a bunch of them were extended episodes with scenes that were deleted previously. They wanted to keep in, but they had to cut for commercials.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I didn't know that they were doing that. Why didn't I know that they were doing that? I have starships hanging from my ceiling in my living room.
Yeah.
This is a failure, not on my part, but of Paramount's part, because they didn't, or CBS or whoever it was. Like, but they've always traditionally, whether it was one company or two companies, done a terrible job of advertising Star Trek, of quality control. Like, DVD packaging is shit. Like, it always has been. Like, you go to open it after buying it, and it's just like 3/4 of it falls apart.
Yep.
Like, it's no.
Yeah, and they
I'll
also-
only take issue with you on the both issues of the TOS Blu-rays were gorgeously packaged. The first
I had the
in
first
those
season. Yeah.
in those plastic
Plastic tricorder looking
plastic
things.
tricorder shaped ones, that was great. And then the Blu-rays were, you know, I own them. My wonderful wife gave them to me for my birthday one year, and they're beautiful. The packaging is gorgeous. Now they're releasing like metal, you know, steel box ones. I'm like, no, fuck you. I'm not buying this 3 times.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But no, I have the first two that you're talking about, and
Yeah.
like, they are gorgeous. I almost bought like resin and everything so I could like make my entire Star Trek collection like those original HD TOS
Mhm.
DVDs. And but the packaging just they fall apart if you use them too much. Like,
Yeah.
if you just open them and it's like all of a sudden, like, one of the little things snaps off and like they fall out, and it's just, oh my god.
Yeah.
It's-
But you're right, they're terrible. You know, they've always taken Star Trek for granted. They've always thought of it as just sort of this thing we happen to own, and there's a few rabid fans, so you know we can guarantee that we'll make X amount of money. And it wasn't until Discovery, I think, that, you know, the Paramount executives finally figured out that, you know, look back to UPN. Voyager launched the freaking network.
Mhm.
You know, and if you look at like early color, and I know we're way out in the weeds here now, and I'm sorry, folks, but you know, you look at anytime there's a TV ad, 9 times out of 10, if they're trying to advertise how amazing the picture is, going back to 1960 freaking 6, you've got a picture of a Star Trek show on that screen.
Yeah.
Either Star Trek or Star Wars or some generic sci-fi thing, or maybe football, but it wasn't until I think that this new era of Trek where some execs went, you know what, we're sitting on a freaking gold mine here.
Yeah.
And we've been ignoring it.
Yeah. Yeah. And to what you mentioned a few minutes ago, Dave, about the episodes being recut for syndication or whatever. I never noticed it because most of my Star Trek watching when I was a kid was the reruns, but I remember I recorded All Good Things when it originally aired. I recorded it on VHS and I probably watched it 100 times. And then when they reran it in syndication a year or so later, I noticed that was the first time I noticed it. Man, this is, they're cutting stuff out. They're cutting a lot of stuff out.
Oh yeah.
and it's weird because it was aired as a 2-hour episode. And then when they put it in syndication, they put it out as 2 1-hour episodes. So it should be the same content, but no, we got to put more commercials in there. We got to sell more diapers, we got to sell more dishwashing liquid.
Well, but not only that, like on the Blu-rays, they put scenes in that they never aired.
Yeah, they put in new stuff, completely new stuff. Yeah.
Stuff they wanted to have and never had the time for. So,
well, I've been watching TOS since I could talk. Probably earlier. And it wasn't until I got these Blu-rays that I saw some scenes in some of these episodes because I never saw them in first run. So it was always, at 4:00 in the afternoon after I got home from school.
Same.
And they were not in any way gentle about just ripping whole scenes out so they could cramp some more ads.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I felt when I watched the Twilight Zone for the first time on the Blu-rays. I was like, man, they leaving in all the cigarette ads and everything.
Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble smoking Winston cigarettes.
Because they taste good, Barney. Even when I smoked, I never went, yummy.
Yeah. It tastes good like a cigarette should.
Yeah.
Okay, so the plasma creatures break into the archive room but they shield Pike and Spock from the ion storm until it passes a safe distance away from the colony. Before being transported back to the Enterprise, Spock realizes that the beings were the missing Illyrian colonists who succumbed to enigmatic conditions of the planet. And then they determined that the Illyrians were going to stop their genetic testing so that they could join the Federation. That's what was in that.
They were going to reverse their engineering.
Yep.
Which is why they died.
Well, yeah, I kind of got the idea that what happened to the people on the ship where they were like trying to get to the light or whatever is what happened to them, and they went running out into that storm and got hit by plasma.
I think they actually said that, or Spock said it, or somebody said it, that they theorized that's what happened to them. So
and then something about their genetic makeup caused them to fuse with the atmosphere, and
it was a very TOS hand wavy explanation.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, so number one confesses her Illyrian heritage to Pike and her genetic augmentations that are banned by Starfleet, and Pike dismisses her offer to resign, reaffirming her place on the Enterprise, which may cause him some problems later if it comes out that he covered it up, but I don't know. He's Pike, so
he's
what are they gonna do?
He can do whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah.
You know what I want to see if this ever when this comes out on DVD, if there was a take where he takes the badge and I'm like, you're not going to put that back on her, are you? And then he hands it to her, and I'm like, I'm wondering if there was a scene where he just went boink.
Yeah, I was waiting for him to go.
A lot of the drama of her like revealing herself to Pike was taken from me because of that first scene where he was like, yeah, it's crazy how we're still all upset about genetic engineering. Yeah, well, I'm like, well, clearly he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Even though there's now that we know there's 2 genetically engineered people on the ship, so it's like,
why 2?
La'an.
Well, I don't think.
No, she's not
La'an
genetically.
She's not genetically. Yeah, she's just related. Yeah.
but remember near the end, she went, "You throw a hell of a punch." See?
Well, there is genetic altering in her DNA because of her ancestry,
Yeah.
but she herself wasn't altered.
I'm just saying that
Yeah.
she's from a lineage of eugenics.
I think
Yeah.
she just kicks ass. I mean,
Well-
I enjoyed the fight choreography. I thought that was some good stuff. There wasn't any Kirk Fu involved. It looks like some legit punches there.
I apologize if I said this on this show or if it was my other show. I don't know. But she is a space seed. So
No, you haven't said it here, and
Okay.
yes, I'm glad you apologized ahead of time.
And
I
then
apologize for all of my humor.
the part of the plot that came out of left field, M'Benga admits to number one that the contagion spread was made possible by his insistence not to upgrade the ship's. It says the ship's transporters, but I took it that it was just
the
it's
medical
transport.
The medical
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
The
They
sick bay
very
transporters.
clearly said medical transporter.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
During the extensive refit that the ship had gone through, because he wanted to care for his daughter, who he was keeping. Which, by the way, Memory Alpha, you got it wrong. It's not a mysterious creature that he calls his daughter. They said it was his daughter. It was his
We
daughter.
even see her. She's
I
just
was
a little girl.
I was looking through Memory Alpha to kind of go through my notes and stuff, and it said a mysterious creature that he calls his daughter. Is like he says it's his daughter. I mean, okay. So he's keeping her in the pattern buffer until he can find the cure for her cagnocemia. Is that
Yeah,
what you call it?
it's a version of leukemia that they don't have a cure for yet.
Yeah.
Yet.
I can remember xenopolycythemia, but I can't remember what he said. His daughter was.
The two's trust in each other and the crew's trust reinforce the officers feel more comfortable to embrace who they really are as the Enterprise departs, ready for its next mission. So, but she basically tells him, "Look, I'm not going to punish you. You're not going to quit Starfleet or anything. We're going to get a dedicated power source." I was like, but the power source wasn't the problem with
Well,
the transporter.
but it's part of the network. The way I took it was that we're going to take this transporter and separately power it so we can disconnect it from the other transporters, and it'll just keep your daughter alive. What I don't get, and I hope they go into it, because I'm like, hope is the operative word here, is why did he have to be so secretive about this? He's the freaking CMO of a starship. He even says it. He's got some pull.
I think he at this point he would get in more trouble because he was so secretive about it and put everybody at risk.
Yeah.
Than if he had just been honest and, look, I'm trying to save her. I don't want her to die. She's only got, I think they said she's got like 12 months to live or something like that.
So she goes to age, so she's stuck like that. I'm like,
yeah.
Well,
I just want to bring her out. I want to bring her out every night and read her a bedtime story, which that almost got me when he brought her out just to read her a bedtime story.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god.
But for her, of course, it's just she just feels like every time every second of the day, he's just reading her the same story.
Because he is, but I mean,
but for her, like, there's no time in between, unless it's like a Reginald Barkley thing, and like she's seeing like worms and shit fly around.
Well, I mean, I immediately, when I saw this, I immediately thought of that character in Altered Carbon who was stuck in her thing. It ended up being a subplot of the first season.
Do you know how much little kids love to have the same thing read to them or watch the same thing?
They do, but
yeah,
not
that
over
wouldn't
and
have
over.
bothered her at all.
Not like
I
without
just,
any time in between.
Right, but I just found it creepy to a degree. I realize what he's doing, but I mean, she doesn't really get to have a life. She's stuck in that buffer the whole time. And why they had to be, and also I felt like this needed to be revealed maybe a couple episodes from now, instead of episode 3.
Or there needs to be a reason why he's so circumspect about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which they didn't even go into, and it's just kind of there. It just kind of popped out of nowhere.
Yeah.
If they're gonna have this reveal, they should have done it like episode 6 or 7, and we should have been seeing like little bits of M'Benga hiding it, and then we're like, what is he up to?
Exactly.
There also needed to be a real reason why he couldn't have her on the ship and be doing that, but it doesn't make any sense. Like, Like if he had a medical issue that, you know, you would suspect that he would go to the captain and be like, before I accept this assignment, you have me on your ship. You need to understand I have to have a dedicated power source in my sick bay because my dick is made of jello. Like something.
My
something
daughter
has
is
to-
in this briefcase and I need to plug it in.
Well, my the other thing that I thought of was, I mean, they kind of still need a transporter in sick bay, so they need to put another one in there, I
Something
guess.
have never had one before.
Yeah,
And-
I
but,
mean,
you know,
they have, but
Not a
on
dedicated
not
one.
not not prior to TNG.
Yeah, right.
No.
Well, actually, no, they never had a. Oh, I guess the Voyager had one, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Voyager had one.
Yeah. But anyway, one thing while we're shitting all over some positive stuff, I really loved Mbenga's office, his desk and office area, because it was a great callback to McCoy's office without being a carbon copy of it. You know, with like bottles of colored liquid on the shelves and a skull and
Yeah,
I
the skull.
really
I
liked
saw the
that.
skull.
I
was
saw
like,
the
oh,
skull
okay.
too. Like, okay.
Yeah, and I loved how much like the people going nuts and slamming their faces through glass and trying to hurt themselves to get to light. Just it felt so much like TOS.
Yeah.
Like it was exciting and painful at the same time. I was just like, oh, this is great and awful.
Ensign Deadbeat, what are you doing? Smack.
Yeah,
We recreated a holographic sun.
Yeah. But the other complaint I had was, of course, we have a crewman who's immune and can cure everybody. That tends to be a trope in every iteration of
Yeah.
Star
I
Trek.
mean, it's usually Data or Spock or
Yeah.
Well, it's all and maybe not the best choice, but the chimeric antibodies, if I'm not mistaken, was a throwback to Genesis, the god awful TNG episode where everybody was devolving into things.
Yeah.
And Reg
Yeah.
became a spider, and
That's a
Yeah.
bad one.
yeah.
Man, my brother-in-law does not know Star Trek like at all. He grew up on Star Wars and he just never understood because like I'm one of his best friends. My co-host on Star Trek Universe is one of his best friends. And he's just like always heard us rattle about Star Trek for years. And he's just like, I just don't get it. But he had never seen an episode. And somehow over the course of like 10 years, he saw 3 episodes of Star Trek. And he just wandered in and turned on the television and it was on. And it was that episode.
Oh no.
Over and over and over.
Okay. This is the only one they made. I mean,
That's
That's it.
He was like, I just don't understand why they're always like turning into like giant alien spiders. And I'm like, dude, you watched the same episode like 3 times. There are like 800 episodes of Star Trek.
And I will admit that is a bad episode, but I love that episode. It's the best bad episode. Okay, so the part of the show where we do trivia, I'm going to start calling it the Observation Lounge. So we're going to head over to the Observation Lounge now.
Okay.
This episode
We need
was
to come up with like music for that or something.
Yeah, okay, I'll come up with something.
Yeah, it should be like a little like turbo lift door, like you hear a turbo lift door and you hear a voice that says entering the Observation Lounge.
So this episode was directed by Leslie Hope, and she previously played Kira Nerese's mother in a Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode.
Excuse me.
It was Wrongs Darker Than the
Wrong.
Death of Night from 1998. So
One of the darker DS9 episodes.
yeah. The focus of the episode finds the Enterprise trying to find out what happened to the colony of Illyrians, although a seemingly so this is where I got this. A seemingly unrelated alien race called Illyrians appeared in a 2004 episode of Enterprise called Damage. But as we said, we're not sure if they're the same Illyrians or just a separate sect of the same species. There's a composite of Illyrians mentioned throughout a number of Star Trek novels. And as we know, they are kind of canonizing some of the stuff from just like Star Wars is doing. They're taking some stuff from some of the novels, especially some of the later novels, and putting them in the story. So
it's like when you
if
have
Thrawn
a
shows up in Trek, I'm going to be pissed.
what'd you say?
If Thrawn shows up in Trek, I'm going to be pissed.
Oh, no.
And I was saying it's like when you have like a hole in the wall, but you have company coming over, so you just like pick up like pillows or something and like put it over the like. Don't notice all the holes in continuity. Here's some fan service. Look at this. Remember the extended thing? Remember what Diane Duane wrote? Remember that?
Here's Control. Look at Control. See, it's not the Borg. It's Control. See, starting in the 1988 book Vulcan's Glory, written by original series powerhouse DC Fontana, it was established that number one was an Illyrian. Several novelists have run with the concept, which existed outside of actual canon, including David Mack's first Star Trek Discovery novel, Desperate Hours, which featured the crews of the Shenzhou and the Enterprise teaming up before what happened in Discovery season 2.
Number one and Saru
basically
almost
saw
did it.
The point is that
Almost.
from 1989 to 2017, Star Trek books have been trying to make number one status as an Illyrian a thing, and now it's actually canon, with a wrinkle, because before in all these novels, being Illyrian didn't carry the kind of stigma that it does now.
Can I say I was just trying to mention this earlier and got sidetracked. This thing that the current writers of Star Trek seem to be very enamored of, where something happened in the past, and so the Federation outlawed it with an absolute blinded fury that there is no exception to it, like the synths in Picard and
the planet that the Guardian is on, or something like that,
or Talos 4 being
Talos 4,
death penalty.
Yeah.
And it's just it doesn't feel right to me in a Star Trek universe that an entire race would be ineligible for application for becoming part of the Federation because they do something that we banned years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that Una has to hide who she is to get into Starfleet is like, I'm not going to say it's wrong or they can't do that. I mean, it's their show, and this has happened, so I have to go with it. It's just this concept that if something goes really wrong, then the Federation is going to ban the fuck out of it. Just really doesn't feel particularly in keeping with the Star Trek ethos that we've seen for the past 50 years.
Well, she's not the first one that we've ever seen that's had to lie their way into Starfleet, right? Didn't Bashir have to do that?
Yeah.
He
And,
was also eugenic. Yeah. Mhm.
And then there's also that from, I think it was the drumhead, that nurse that was half Romulan.
Yeah.
He had to lie and tell everybody he was Vulcan.
Well, that wasn't, but that, and that ended up being pointed out as incredibly wrong and antithetical to Starfleet values.
Yeah, but that's also a really common trope throughout all of Star Trek, is that the Federation and Starfleet are kind of dicks. Like, they're a bunch of old white guys who throw down a lot of bullshit rules. I mean, that's why, like, when they keep doing it, and the point is not that the heroes or the people they work for are always good. The point is that we're striving to be better, and sometimes we have to deal with these assholes in power. I think the movies were all about the bureaucratic mentality. So that's why it's so maddening to me a little bit, and just like, because I think there's such a good story there. I would love to go back and explain why women weren't allowed on the bridge before the cage. And I would love to see it. I would love to, because it's like there's some even in our history, women come to power, women are accepted as powerful, and then slippery slope. Here's something 100 years later, all of a sudden, like, they're not allowed to ride bicycles.
Well, I mean, yeah, they did that with they did that in TNG, where suddenly here it is, Star Trek 6, a woman takes over as the Chancellor. Suddenly in TNG, women can't be on the council, the Klingon council. Like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. What did Azit Bor do that made them say no to that? For like, I would love to see, like, in my head, which I get they're ignoring it, but I think it would be really cool to have, like, a mini series or something some great war where they try to an enemy tries to take them down with a biological weapon, only affects the women. So they have to like,
Yeah.
they use that as an excuse to get the women off the bridges out of Starfleet. And then
That's where the Pac-Lids came from.
Like, I think there are interesting sci-fi ways that you could do an allegory for like a slippery slope, just like with Kurt being prejudiced against the Klingons. Like, I know, this is the future, we're not supposed to be prejudiced. Everybody on that crew hated the Klingons.
Yeah, but he hated the Klingons because they killed his son, who he knew for
He
all
said-
of 2 hours.
Why was Chekhov a dick about him?
He literally said,
Everybody
"Let
was a
them
dick."
die."
Yeah,
Like all of them, let them die.
Chekhov was definitely against him. He was like, guess who's coming to dinner? Pissed. Like, everybody on that bridge crew was pissed about the Klingons. And
Close enough to smell them.
obviously we had conspirators trying to like, man, I love Star Trek 6. It's so fantastic.
Pink blood and everything.
I'll
So
take it.
the first this is the first full confirmation that La'an is related to Khan. Una even says his full name in this episode. Both Una and La'an are very familiar with the history of the eugenics wars. Spock's not present when they're talking, and later in Space Seed, Spock makes a point of saying that there's no official records.
Yeah, I was
There's
like,
no official records of the eugenics wars. It's very unclear. Except, for number one in line. They know all about it.
Do we think, because I watched this a second time this evening before we recorded tonight. I'm definitely getting a "we're X's" vibe from Lon and
I kept thinking a student teacher vibe, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm getting a more of a big sister, little sister kind of thing from them myself. But Rick, I wanted to ask you, Mbanga, did you pucker up when Mbanga when Mbanga called the Enterprise the flagship of the fleet? Because
yeah,
when he said that, I was like, Rick's not gonna like that.
I didn't like it, but I have to, it's okay now. It is.
I guess it is now.
It wasn't before.
Yeah,
It is
I
now.
always got the impression that the Enterprise was like an old war horse, basically. Like it was
yeah, I mean, it was supposed to be
just
part of
one of 12
Yeah.
Constitution classes in the fleet. It wasn't until the 1701D that she became the flagship.
right.
But that
Yeah.
kind of has done this sort of Mandela effect retcon, and everybody started assuming every Enterprise was the flagship of the fleet at the time, which was not at all true. But now it is. So
That's why I say it's a different universe. It's okay.
The series of Star Trek Lower Decks clearly established that junior officers and cadets not only have roommates, but they often have tiny bunks that can be sealed off. So they brought that back in this. Una makes a huge point to La'an at the end of the episode that Illyrians genetically modified themselves to adapt to planets. In another roundabout Wrath of Khan reference, this seems to make the Illyrians like the opposite of the Genesis device. So instead of terraforming a planet to meet their needs, they transform themselves to match the planet that they're going to.
Mm-hmm.
well, it's like the Cytherian that we meet in TNG, one of the actually not half bad first season episodes, it was the one, the Nth Degree. It was later when the Reg turns into this like super genius, and he totally rebuilds the ship and creates these super engines, and then flies the ship to this dude who's just a big head, and he says, we don't go places, we bring places to us.
Yeah, bring
Yeah.
you to us. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I've got. Do you guys have anything you want to add before we close up?
A galactic version of Gary Mitchell.
Mm.
Just bringing over the styrofoam silver cup.
No, I think I hit all the points I wanted to.
Okay.
I mean, I'm still enjoying it as much as we're, we've been dissing on it. I think it's interesting that I'm finding that while I have complained in the past about the serialized nature of the other Trek shows that are on now, and how odd it is that this is the way of television now. And most of the people, if not all of the people writing for Discovery and Picard, they're young enough that this is the paradigm of television to them too. They're still kind of not doing it very well.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're seeing they're also not all that good at episodic either, because I'm enjoying the show. And again, it's, throughout all of these shows, and even the Kelvin movies, while I don't always think the stories are the best, and I have some aesthetic issues, the characters are great and the acting is top notch. And I really, I can't complain about any of that.
Mhm.
And I'm really falling in love with Chapel. Although she's basically Agnes Girardi, just with a different haircut. But I just,
She's not as mopey.
Yeah,
well,
no, she's way more confident and
she's
sassy.
a little more chipper, yeah. But she's like, when Agnes is in her manic phase, that's Chapel. But I'm again, for all of the experience that the people doing the show have had, it's still the first season of a brand new show. And
Mhm.
so it's what we saw today was nowhere near as bad as The Naked Now. So
Yeah.
it was, there were certainly callbacks to that, and we've talked about The Naked Now before, how it really doesn't do any good to make your characters act out of character when we don't know what their character is yet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
At least this was, nobody was particularly out of character. They were just doing stupid shit because they were, so despite all the criticisms, I'm enjoying the show. I'm loving the characters. I am absolutely eating up what little pandering they're giving me. Every time they bring in a new character who's someone we've known before, I'm loving it. I'm still along, and I really love the look of the new Enterprise most of the time. I think they're just, and this is, I'm pretty sure, trying to keep the JJ fans happy, because JJ's ships were freaking enormous.
Mm. Yeah.
What was it Pike said to Chris Pine's Kirk? Your father was captain for 10 minutes and he saved 1,000 people or 700 people or something like that. And
Mhm.
the Kelvin should have been a lot smaller than the Enterprise, but Abrams has no grasp of scale. And
But lens flares.
yeah, lens flares, and everybody can see everything that's happening in space from anywhere else in space. So I and like the turbo lift system in Discovery, it's just like a whole universe unto itself.
Mhm.
I definitely have issues with all of this stuff, but overall, even questionable Trek is still better than no Trek, and I'm loving being able to watch this and going along for the ride.
Well, I've had to resign myself to, this is before TOS, and now they have replicators, and they didn't have replicators, back then. They even said in Voyager, Harry Kim even said in that episode about Sulu and everything, they didn't have replicators back then.
Well, and in TOS, Kirk had to go and push a button on a wall to address the ship. Now they're just talking out into the air,
Mhm.
like on
Mhm.
TNG, and it
Mhm.
bugged me the first few times, and then I was like, if I'm going to quibble over everything, I'm going to be miserable watching the show. So I'm just
True.
gonna,
Very true.
just gonna
Mhm.
take a breath, unclench, and just enjoy the ride
All right, that's gonna do it for
as
us
much as
this
I
week.
can.
Make sure that you check out our Patreon at patreon.com/infinite potato. We've got some movie commentaries there for you that you might enjoy, including the one that we're going to be recording here in just a few minutes. So you can join us there for as little as $3 a month. So come and pay us a visit. In the meantime, if you want to contact us on the show and let us know what you thought about this week's episode, come check out the website at infinitepotato.com and click on the link for that Star Trek podcast, and you'll find our Facebook group, our Twitter page, our email, and more. Jen, thank you very much for being here with us tonight.
Thank you as always for having me.
Where can we find you?
Pretty much
on the internets.
pretty much all around the Infinite Potato Network. I kind of pop up here and there. So there you go.
All right, Dave, thank you for being here.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
Where are you at?
I'm just in my house. You can find me on Star Trek Universe podcast, or if you're into the DC comics films on or in television series, DC On Screen is that podcast.
All righty. And Rick, thank you for being here as well.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Where can we find you?
You can find me doing my bad announcer voice. You can find me probably in a urgent care facility nearby, or on Starbase 66, and I actually, hopefully, I've got a couple of Admiral's tables coming up if I can get them scheduled. And what else do I do? Oh, Open the Iris. We're getting that back into full swing. The Stargate SG-1 show, and any other show that will have me. I actually guested on my friend's foundation podcast called Star's End earlier.
Cool. Okay.
No, it's not earlier this week because this is Monday. There is no earlier this week. I did it on Saturday.
Sunday, technically. All right. Be sure to join us as we return next week to discuss the next new episode of Strange New Worlds, which is titled Memento Mori. Until then, remember, the lights are on, but that doesn't mean we see clearly.